In this video we're going to take Photoshop and put the island that we created in the last episode inside. We're going to add some textures and we're going to add some wave-like contours around the outside. My name is Glynn and welcome to Role-Playing Cartography. Hello, so if you watched the last episode you will see that we created a realistic looking terrain map in ArtRage, and the plan now is to take this into Photoshop, and I have an action set up in Photoshop which is kind of a macro. So it's a series of recorded actions that you take, and the tools you use and the settings you use, and they're all recorded together to form one action. So you can basically just click one button and apply what would be 15 minutes worth of time normally to do it manually. So I'm not able to do that in ArtRage, and I'm not able to do that in Affinity Photo or Designer. I've kind of tried it, but it didn't work out quite as good as it works in Photoshop. So hopefully we end up with a kind of enhanced version of this. We're going to apply some textures as well in Photoshop. So basically we end up with this, and you can see the outlines of the landmass, the kind of waves that we've created. And the landmass has kind of got a little bit of embossing on, and we've got more control over the features. So there's multiple layers going on and things, textures, but I'm just going to drop that off and show you how that's achieved. So this canvas is set up at exactly the same size as the ArtRage canvas, which for the record is it's an 8.5 inch by 11 inch page, but I've allowed 0.125 inch bleed around all of the edges so that we could use that for print on a US letter size page if we wanted. So in ArtRage itself I've exported some separate layers. So we've got the sea and the sea textures have been exported as one layer, or one TIFF file. Then we've got the landmass itself, not the outline, just the landmass with the mountains and without the woodland as well. Then we've got the woodland as a separate, and we've got the ink outline as a separate. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to drop all those into this file, and you can see basically we'll start off, we'll just drop the sea in and accept that. So we've now got sea. The benefit of dropping all these layers in individually is you can apply layer effects and color adjustments and other adjustment layers specifically to just that one piece. So we'll drop the landmass on and accept that. And one thing to bear in mind is in the original ArtRage file, the background of the file was set to transparent. So when you switch off the sea layer and you switch off all the other layers, you've just got the landmass stuff, so the mountains and the land texture. Around it is transparent, and that allows me to export it as a TIFF file, which keeps the alpha layer, the transparency, with it. And that means that when I drop them in here, I've still got all the transparency around it. So we'll drop on the woodlands and we'll drop on the ink. Okay. So now technically we've got what we had in the ArtRage file. We haven't done anything to the landmass itself, to the layers themselves yet. Now, some things I don't like about this straight from the off. One is I don't really like that the ink work is so high contrasting. So with the ink layer selected, we can click and add a color overlay. And if you just click the color overlay box, and then you can make changes to the color. So we could have it as more of a white, and you can play about with that to get the color that you think works the best for you. We could even have it blue, so it's more in line with the sea. You can actually use the pipette tool here to pick colors. So if we wanted it close to the landmass color there, we could have that. It generally works if it's a little bit darker, I always think, but not too much. So I'm reasonably happy with that. So we'll OK that. You can play with the blend modes if you want, but I don't tend to mess about with that on this ink layer. So we've got some ink, that's good. The woodlands. Now, if I wanted to play about with the colour of the woodland layer, what I would need to do first is just drop it into a little folder. If I apply some adjustment layer, which I'm going to do, in fact we'll do that now just to show. So let's say I'm going to apply a hue and saturation adjustment layer. I had the woodland selected, it's moved it to the top. That will apply any changes down to the whole of the other layers below it. Whereas if you actually put that in a folder, let's just drag it into there and apply this hue and saturation to the folder, then I forgot to change. It's good that I've showed you that that was wrong. I need to set the group which is in the pass-through blending mode. I need to just set that to normal. So once I've now set that to normal, any changes that I make to this are only contained within the layers in the folder. So you can see now that we could have purple heather, lovely. I'm just resetting that back to 0. So we can make some changes to that. We could drop off the saturation, bring it more grey, or we could enhance it to make it vibrant. And again, we can just play about with this as we need to. So I'll just reset those to 0, 0 for the moment. So I'll just call that woodland group. Okay. Hello, Glynn from Monkey Blood Design here. This is the point in the video where I remind you to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, share and comment. Thank you. Now the landmass. What I'll do with the landmass, we'll just add some layer effect. Layer effect is not affected by or does not affect all the layers below. It just applies very specifically to that layer. So I will add some bevel and emboss. So what I'd like to do here is just bring the size down a little bit. And you can see it's very subtle. Just make the depth a bit more. It's probably a bit too much. So you just have a little bit of a play about with this. We don't want the size to be too far. I just want that little bit to, we'll change that to a linear 45-degree contour. Oh, we'll make that smooth. We won't soften it, we'll just I'm just trying to make it very subtle. Okay. I think I'll also add, and you can do multiple layer effects on this same layer, is add a little bit of inner glow. So actually we'll change that from soft light. Let's make it hard light. Set it to the edge, so it works on the edge inwards. And you can see there that it kind of gives a bit more like life to the edges of the outline, and you can change the colour of that. So let's say we wanted to add it brown. That's a bit too much contrast for me. I like it to be somewhere near the landmass colour, maybe a little bit lighter. Now we'll go darker. I think darker works a little bit better for this. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. What I think I'll do now is we're going to add some textures slap bang over the top of this. I'm going to just pull up my texture files. So first one, I've got one here, we'll just drop it straight over the top. And we're just going to increase the size of it. You can do this however you want. Just making sure that we cover the paper. Click apply. You can see there that the woodland's on the top because of where it is in the layer order. So I'm just going to bring that right up to the top. And then, because it's now covering everything, I want to check out the blend modes. Let's have a look at what happens if I multiply it down. It's pretty good. It's probably muting it a little bit more than I want, so I can play about with a few more of these. Let's go with the colour burn. I quite like that. Nice and vivid. And let's drop a parchmenty type background on as well. So maybe some creases in maybe. Let's go with this. I always hit Control and move these, and it makes it skewed. Okay, we'll click light for that. We'll also multiply that down. But you can see it's added some nice little bits of detail here in this the creases. So that's pretty cool. But again, we've muted the colours quite a lot, so I'm just going to have a look for a blend mode that sort of preserves more of that while still leaving the creases. I don't want to go too mad with this. I'm probably, I think, going to leave it as multiply and just drop the opacity back slightly. Probably set that to 70%, and this one, we'll just drop this one back to about the same. Okay. Now, if we select we can do something else actually. We can change the sea colour. Again, it's the same method whereby we need to create a folder, drop the sea in the folder, change the group's blend mode to normal, and we'll call that sea group. And then we can apply it's that icon there. I just realised I'm probably blocking these. So that's the layer effects tool there. A bad logo placement as well. But I've got to get the message out there. So we'll use the hue saturation. There is another way of selecting this actually, and that is with the group selected, go to layer, new adjustment layer, and we'll use hue saturation or lightness. So now we can play about with the sea colour and only the sea colour, and you can do what you will with that. I kind of like that where it is. That's really just to show you. But another thing we can do is play about with the colours of the whole thing. So if I select all of the elements of the design so far, I always right click, create a group folder. I had all those selected. So now if I select layer, new adjustment layer, HSL, hue saturation and lightness, any changes that we make here will apply to the whole of the map, all of the underlying textures, because I haven't changed the group. Well, it doesn't matter in this instance because everything's in the same folder anyway. So whether it's pass through or normal, it won't make any difference. But we're going to make some changes now to the layer effect, to the HSL adjustment layer, and you can see we can actually that's pretty good. That's -23. But you can have all sorts of fun trying to create ancient alien worlds. So I think we'll just drop that down to about there. You can single out very specific colours in it as well by changing this here. So if you wanted to change the yellows, any yellows in the design would then start to go. So there's quite a lot of control that you've got with that. But I think for the moment I'm pretty happy with that. So the one key thing of using Photoshop is the action that I've created to generate the contour lines. So I'm going to show you how I do that and it's just going to be really easy. So I'm just zooming in on the design here. I'm selecting the landmass layer. I basically want an object's outer to work from in terms of the action that I've created. And this little button here is my actions. You can get at it through window actions there, Alt F9. So if I pop it up, I've got lots of things here that I've used previously. This coastal contour lines, 10 pix to 3 pix is the one that I use. I'll click this, does all the work in the background, and you can see it's actually generated the contour lines. Now they're not showing up particularly well, but it's put them all in a lovely group for me. So I will apply a colour overlay to that, and you can see immediately it's made it pop. I would tend to choose something between white and the sea colour. So if I just pick this here, you can see immediately it's making a lot of difference. You can just kind of tweak that as you need it. I'm quite a big fan of that. So yeah, there you go. It's really that easy. The way that that is done is you're basically recording actions that you're taking. So if I selected the outline of the landmass, I then increase that selection, and you can use the select, modify, and there's a contract or a grow, enlarge. So I've got the selection selected. I increase the selection. I then create a new layer and I fill that selection with a fill color. I then contract the selection by a few pixels, and then I press delete to get rid of the fill on that layer. And what it leaves is an outline, a drawn outline around the landmass. I then do that again, but I go a little bit further out. Fill it, contract it. Further out again, fill it, contract it. And you do that for, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. Then the first line is 80% opacity, the second line is 60%, the third line is 40%, and the last line is 20%. And then another line after that would be 0, so you don't need it. And that's basically how the coastal contours are created. That's just recorded as a macro, or an action in this case. And then all I have to do is select the landmass, hit the action button, and it just does all of that work very quickly. So that's how we get the coastal contour lines. What I'll do from here is I'll save this, export it into Affinity Designer, and then we'll start adding some labels on in the next episode. Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you found something useful. Why not consider supporting what I do here by heading over to the Monkey Blood web store at www.monkeyblooddesign.co.uk. Check out handy maps, handy A5 size maps that you can use as game inspiration. There's towns and villages, buildings and structures, and dungeons, caves and strange locales, and you can use these within your game as inspiration, populate them for your players to explore and pillage. Enjoy. Thank you.